Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Azure Infrastructure Update. It is the 4th of July. To all of those in the US, happy 4th of July. To all those in England. So, let's get on with the update. So I am back home after last week. So I was in Ironman Coeur d'Alene. It was beautiful there. I did finish. It was a record did not finish rate for the event. 26.4% of the people did not finish. It was 100 degrees, and then when you add in the radiation actually from the asphalt, it was about 109 degrees was the temperature. So it was a beating. If you're interested in my misery, I did do kind of a blog about it, just the experience in general. But I finished. It's kind of me on my bike and me happy because I'm finishing. But it did take a really long time. New videos. I did kind of an overview and some of the detail about what we can do with Azure Route Server. When we think about, hey, we're used to using user-defined routes and manually saying, hey, if your next hop, go here. Well, with some types of NVAs, I don't need that when they support BGP and I can integrate with Route Server. And there was this big announcement about Azure Private MEC. What is private wireless? Where does the Azure Private MEC fit? So I went into some details about that. So let's get to the new features. And again, as always, if this is useful, a like, subscribe, comment, and share is appreciated, and hit that bell icon. So basically, there's a new version of the secure compute SKUs. So the DCsv3 and the DCsv3, i.e. does it have local temporary storage or not? So these confidential compute SKUs, remember, use the Intel SGX, the software guard extension. This basically gives me an area of encrypted memory my application can use that's always encrypted. Even when it's being used by the processor, it's always encrypted. So these new ones are actually built off of this 3rd gen Intel Xeon Scalable processor. And the big deal here is that encrypted area of memory I talked about can actually now be 1,000 times bigger. As it increased the number of CPU cores to 48, so we get better performance. So these are in preview. I can go and sign up and get on that preview. On the networking side, so the Azure VPN, the site-to-site VPN network address translation is now in preview. So remember, this is all about the idea that ordinarily I can't have overlapping IP spaces. If we think about the idea that, hey, maybe I've got my virtual network, and maybe just for example, let's just say that is 192.168.0.0/24. And then I have my kind of VPN site-to-site gateway. Then maybe I'm connecting to branches that, hey, originally we didn't really think this through. And this is 192.168.0.0/24 as well. And so is this one. So ordinarily, because they are overlapping, I could not connect these. Well, when I do NAT, network address translation, in the VPN gateway, well, I now can connect them. Now it's a static NAT. So what that means is it's essentially requiring a one-to-one mapping of the address space. So if I have like a /24 here, I have to allocate a /24 to map the addresses to that won't overlap. Or we can create both egress rules and ingress rules. For example, it's egress going from here outbound to a branch, and it's ingress coming from a branch into the VPN gateway. So I would create those rules. So for example, maybe on this one, so I create an egress rule. And what I'm basically saying is, look, I need to map my 192.168.0.0/24, and I'm going to map that to 10.0.0/24. I map it to something else. Then for these are ingress. So here I can say, well, okay, well, this 192.168.0.0/24, that's going to map to 10.0.1.0/24. Likewise, this would have a different ingress rule that for that 192 now maps to 10.0.2.0/24. You you can see these spaces don't overlap. Now, hey, I can create those VPN connections, and I would specify, hey, for this connection, my ingress rule is ingress rule 1. This one is ingress rule 2, used by this connection, and they both use kind of egress rule 1. These are not spaces in the VPN, actually in the VNet. The VPN gateway is going to do those mappings of the IP addresses and work all of that out for me, but now these can talk. When this receives traffic from this VNet, it's going to look like it's coming from a 10.000. When this VNet receives traffic from here, it will now look like a 10.0.2.0. So that's what this NAT capability is going to do. So I can now kind of enable that feature in preview. So now finally I can connect things using site-to-site VPN, be it maybe just the branches overlap, they don't overlap with the VNet, or maybe it all overlaps. But whatever that combination is, I can now assign these non-overlapping spaces through the ingress and egress rules, which the VPN gateway will take care of that snap and make it all work for me. So that's a super cool, nice feature. On the storage side, so on-demand disk bursting for the P30 Plus is now in preview in more regions. So remember, this is different from the bucket-based, credit-based bursting we have with the kind of smaller than P30 disks. The credit bucket-based is, hey, if I'm operating below my provisioned IOPS, for 30 minutes I can burst up to a higher amount for free until I exhaust my credits. And I did a deep dive video all about managed disk where I go through both of these types of bursting. Well, this on-demand bursting is for the bigger disks. So this is where I have kind of this 1 terabyte plus disk. I pay a certain amount of money to turn this on, and then I pay a certain amount of money for the additional amount of IOPS. So I'm not limited to a 30-minute window. It's not based on any credit I've accrued. I will just pay extra for this. Now, if it's longer term, then I probably want to actually change performance tier. But for those shorter bursts that I need, I can do this. And if you actually go and look at the documentation about this, if this will actually go and open up, maybe it did. Let's go and see. There we go. So if we go and look at the docs for the managed disk pricing over here, it does talk about kind of the bursting. And it talks about kind of this, well, we have this monthly enablement fee and then a burst transaction fee based on kind of the half a penny for 10,000 IOs. And it talks about what we can actually boost up to, i.e. 30,000 IOPS and 1,000 megabytes per second. And it kind of shows me this when I look at the disk sizes. Once I get to kind of the P30 and above, so I'm kind of looking here, that's where we see this 30,000 maximum that's just available to me, and that 200, 250 megabyte a second. And those are all kind of these with bursting numbers that we can see there. So again, that's different. I pay for that. It's not the free option. That's now available in more regions. ADLS Gen 2 now has soft delete in preview. Now remember, ADLS Gen 2 is built on Blob, and Blob has a number of features. Soft delete for blobs, versioning, change feed and versioning is not available right now for ADLS Gen 2, but now soft delete is actually in preview. So this gives me the ability, if I've enabled that hierarchical namespace on top of Blob, that's what the ADLS Gen 2 is. Now, once I've signed up, I can actually go and turn on that soft delete. So if I've deleted the blob, I'll actually be able to go and undelete it. So be it a file or a directory, because we have that in ADLS Gen 2, I can actually go and undelete it for whatever that period of retention is. I specify, well, how long do I want to keep it for, i.e. 7 days? Because remember, I carry on paying for it. If I have soft delete turned on, I say keep for 7 days. If I delete something, I'm going to carry on paying for it for that 7 days or whatever that retention period is. On the database side, so Azure SQL Managed Instance, Azure Arc goes GA end of July. So remember, Azure Arc is all about bringing the Azure management to things maybe on premises or in other clouds. We can think about how it can manage OS instances like Windows or Linux. It can manage any CNCF Kubernetes environment. And then once it's managing that Kubernetes environment, it can lay down services on top of that. So data services were the first ones in preview, SQL MI and Postgres Hyperscale. Well, now the Azure SQL MI is going to go GA soon. So now it'll actually take care of that kind of evergreen. It will manage it just like regular Azure SQL PaaS MI. Well, I'll now be able to have that on my Azure Arc environment. So wherever I have this CNCF Kubernetes that I'm managing through Arc, I'm going to be able to light up and now get that first data service actually in GA. There's also machine learning services in preview, app services in preview. So this is just kind of getting bigger and bigger, giving me the choice. I can kind of run those Azure services almost wherever I want, on-prem, other clouds, through Arc. Then miscellaneous. So the Azure Image Builder has gone GA. So the Azure Image Builder is built on the HashiCorp called Packer. This works for Windows and Linux, and it's really all about the idea that, hey, we have some source image. That is, source image could be, well, it could be a custom image I have. So I have my kind of image over here. And again, Windows, Linux, this could be custom. It could be kind of from the marketplace. And we think about what we normally do when we create a custom image is we have some configuration. There's some configuration we have. Now that might use declarative technologies. I might be using PowerShell DSC or Chef or Puppet, whatever that could be. And basically we have this process that brings in the image, applies that configuration, maybe it's applying security tools, configurations, whatever I might want, then it spits out essentially a new image. I kind of could think about, hey, I've got my nice gold image over here that I then use, maybe it's for my virtual machine scale sets, maybe it's for my Azure virtual desktop. And then if I've got a new version, well, hey, I could automatically deploy that to my VMS or my Azure virtual desktop. Because this target could be as part of my kind of shared image gallery, which again supports versions. It could be a managed image, or it kind of could just be a VHD. So I have all these different things it can spit out. But ordinarily, I have to manage that pipeline. I have to create all the resources to enable that thing to actually work. Well, with the Azure Image Builder, all I really care about is this, my configuration. It then takes care of spinning up the resources required to actually, hey, bring in the old image, apply the config, if it's Windows, generalize it, go and write it somewhere, and then it deletes all those resources. So only really pay money for the time in which it's building that new image. And I can kick this off through pipelines or anything else. Think about a scenario, hey, I used a marketplace image and every month it gets updated. I could then trigger the Azure Image Builder to run to apply my configs, spit out a new, now updated version of my custom image that I use in my environments. VMSS can automatically trigger a rollout when it sees a new version. So I could really make this super, super seamless. So the whole point now is, well, this Azure Image Builder is now GA. So, hey, I can use that in production. So Azure Automanage now supports Arc-enabled servers in preview. So remember the whole point, I talked about Azure Arc. Hey, we can manage OS instances, Windows, Linux, Kubernetes. So Azure Automanage is the service that lets me now treat an OS instance kind of like a PaaS. I don't care about the OS anymore. I don't want to patch it or backup or worry about config or any of those things. So Azure Automanage has the idea of understanding, is this production or is this dev test? If it's dev test, do I want to back it up? Probably not. I'd rather save some money. So I turn on Automanage initially for Azure VMs, and it takes care of, hey, what's the right configuration? What's the security hardening? Do I have backup turned on those things? Applying patches. Well, now, For my Arc-enabled servers, I can also use Azure Automanage in preview. So wherever that Windows or Linux is, be it on-prem or other clouds, I can leverage that capability. So cost management now has this amortized view available across all the different views. So with reserved instances, I'm essentially committing, hey, I'm going to use this amount of this service. And the example they kind of use is, imagine I committed to spend $365 a year. That's not a real number. That's basically $1 a day. So with this amortized view, when I turn that view on, what it would actually show me is, hey, you kind of have $1 a day. You only use 50 cents of it on this day. So it would actually show me that. Now, I don't have a reserved instance, but where it would kind of show up in the idea would be if I was just, let's close that. If I was looking at my kind of cost management views, so if I went to cost management and go there, so a quick look. So we have all these different kind of views available to us, different subscriptions, resource groups, just going through that fun update right now. But you can have this kind of customized, and I'll show it here. And what it's going to give you is, so normally it's actual cost, but now it has this kind of amortized cost as well. So there it would actually show me, hey, this is kind of the amount you should be using for reserved instances on this day. This is kind of what you've actually used. So it would help me see, hey, am I really doing kind of the right things? And it used to just be for the reserved instance view, but now I can kind of do it across all of those views in the cost management. The management group has the tree view. So I actually talked about this a while ago, and then when I tried to demo it, it had gone. So it actually got pulled back. So I looked the other day and it's there again. And really, this is just a nicer experience for the management groups. So when you've probably noticed this already, but I just wanted to make sure you did know it was there. If I go and look at my management groups, notice now it's kind of this nice expanding tree that I can easily go and see any of it. You know, I can still see what's under it very nicely. I can kind of resort how I'm doing those things. I can kind of go up levels back up to my tenant. I can right click on things. So I could right click and I want to move it somewhere else. I could right click and say, hey, I want to delete it. And of course, we've got these same ideas of, hey, I can apply policies at these levels, RBAC at these levels, budgets at these levels. It's kind of one of the big reasons we use the management groups is for that robust access control, policy, and budgets. And I can organize my things as well, but it's really those are the three things as to why I organize the things. And so that nicer view, that new snap-in is there and live again. The Azure Security Center June 2021 updates. Having some issues with links today. Try this one more. Come on. There we go. Is up, and there's really 4 changes here. So if we quickly look at this, so one is about alerts for Defender for Key Vault. And really the idea of what it's doing here is, hey, there's an extended threat protection about access from a suspicious IP address to Key Vault. Recommendations about encrypting with customer managed keys are now not enabled by default. So you can go and enable them if you wish, and they've been kind of been renamed to enable if required. You can kind of see that's what they're changing them to. So you can go and enable those if you want those, but they're not enabled by default. The Kubernetes alerts have been renamed from AKS, i.e. the Azure Kubernetes Service, to K8S, Kubernetes, because, well, Defender for Kubernetes doesn't just run in AKS anymore, it runs on Arc-managed Kubernetes. So really AKS is not the right term. It's a Kubernetes alert, so they've renamed that. And then they've deprecated 2 recommendations about apply system updates. And as always, I've got kind of the details in the description below. You can click on those links and see them. And make sure you've updated PowerShell. So what they found, there was a .NET vulnerability, a remote code execution vulnerability. It's been fixed, I think, in 7.03 and 7.13. Go and check and make sure you have updated that. It's kind of a big deal. You can always remember, go and check what version you're actually running. So if I'm over here in my terminal, if I just type $ps version, actually click it properly. So if I'm over here and I type ps version table, we can see, hey, yeah, that's good. I'm running 7.1.3. So that's what I want to be running at minimum. That today is the latest version. That means I've got protection from that actual vulnerability. If you don't see that, if you're kind of a 7.1 or 7.0, go and update right now. It's not a good place to be. And with that, that is our updates for this week. So as always, I hope that was useful. Check this out every week, check out new content. But until next week, stay super in the cloud and take care.